will now take the sediment for this meeting of the Planning Committee held on the 24th of September 2024. The following members are present: Councillors Alec Allison, Ralph Barker, Archie Buchanan, Ross Clark, Jerry Convery. We have apologies from Councillor Margaret Cowie. Councillor Bert Thompson is attending as a substitute. Councillor Maureen Devlin is not present, but I understand that she is hoping to attend. Councillors Colin Dewar and Mary Donnelly are present. Apologies from Councillor Joe Fagan. Councillor Elise Frame is not present. We have apologies from Councillor Alistair Fulton. Councillor Julia Mars is attending as a substitute. With apologies from Councillor Shalene Handybod. Councillor Graham Horn is not present. Councillor Ross Lambie is present. Councillors Martin Lennon and Monique McAdams are not present. Councillor Leslie MacDonald is present. We have apologies from Councillor David McLachlan, and Councillor Walter Brogan is attending as a substitute. The following members are all present: Councillors Richard Nelson, Norman Ray, John Ross, Graham Scott, David Shearer, Helen Toner and David Watson. Thank you, and I'll pass you back to the Chair for today's business.
Thank you very much, Stuart. We'll move into today's business. Agenda item number 1. Is there any declarations of interest? Councillor Mars.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I would declare an interest on item 5, please, on the basis of a close personal connection to a contractor of the applicant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mars. Any other declarations of interest? Councillor Mars, when we come to agenda item number 5, I will ask you to leave the meeting and we will then invite you back in when we move on to the agenda item number 6. Agenda item number 2 is minutes of the previous meeting. These are submitted for approval as a correct record. These are on pages 5 to 16. I will move these as approved as a correct record.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 3 then is application P23116. These are on pages 17 to 28. In your pack, installation of battery storage facility, land north of Cairnhouses Road in Lesmahago. I'll ask Fraser to present.
Thanks, Chair. This report is actually a consultation that's been submitted to South Lanarkshire Council by the Scottish Government's Energy Consents Unit. And the consultation relates to a proposal for up to 34 battery storage units and ancillary infrastructure on a site that sits some 3 kilometres north of Colburn. This decision will be decided by the Scottish Government and not South Lanarkshire Council, and to that end any representations would need to be made to the Scottish Government. But in summary, when assessed against the existing local development plan and relevant national planning policies, it is considered that proposals are acceptable and that, subject to a number of conditions that are set out on pages 23, 24 and 25, that the Scottish Government's Energy Consent Unit is informed that South Lanarkshire Council does not wish to object to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. Councillor Lambie.
Thanks, Chair. This is an interesting one. So, as people on the committee know, the rural half of South Lanarkshire is becoming a bit of a renewables hub. There's a lot of wind farm developments being renewed, and we're quite well experienced with that in our rural areas. We know how to engage with wind farm developers and manage construction impacts, and we also are aware they come with substations and overhead power lines and ancillaries like that. Excuse me. However, there are a new wave of additional renewable facilities coming to the area. They include things like solar farms, hydrogen storage, and the item in the agenda today, which is a battery storage development. Now, similar to wind farms, these BES, battery storage developments, they sort of industrialise a portion of the landscape. They come with significant construction disruption to the neighbourhoods, strengthening of bridges and road diversions, etc. Unique to them, they do come with additional concerns related to fire. What happens when they have thermal runaway and they go on fire, like has happened elsewhere in the UK? The volume of water required to put it out is unimaginable, actually, how much water it takes to put out a battery fire of that size. and then in doing so you wash all the chemicals into the local waterways, etc. Now, the real reason for my making comment today was there's been no community consultation by this developer, and it's actually the second development. There's one across the road which is probably double the size, and there was no community consultation for that either. And whilst it pains me that we don't have the power of decision for items like this and it's decided elsewhere, I think it's incumbent upon us to try and, where we can, influence the developers of these large projects to engage with the community. You know, rural Lanarkshire's got a long history of industrialisation, from coal mining, quarrying and agriculture, and we've learned the lessons that you have to bring the community along with you and they have to be engaged. They can't just be bystanders on it. And this isn't a criticism at all of the planning department and the officers, because they are working within the parameters they're set. However, I wonder if committee members would be minded to support a motion that we tell the Energy Consents Unit in Scotland that we oppose this application on the grounds that there's been no community consultation. I'll just open up, see if anyone else has comment.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lambie. Fraser, can you just come in and clarify, and then we'll check to see if there's somebody to second your amendment to the... Are you proposing that we oppose the full paper? Yep, okay. Let's bring in Fraser first, and then we'll open it up.
Yeah, no, thanks, Councillor. And no, I must admit, I would kind of support the suggestion in terms of applicants to engage with local communities, to engage with local members, making people aware of proposals that are coming forward, seeking to get support and actually to deal with some of the concerns that might be raised by the local community as well. But there still is a statutory consultation process that they need to go through, the neighbour notification, the adverts around it, and no, I would say the applicant has. They've carried out the statutory requirement on this. It very much sits with the applicants to decide how much they want to go beyond that as well. These applications, they are submitted to the Scottish Government. We're a consultee. And the consultation that we can carry out is more, that the statutory consultation process with colleagues from environmental services, from the road service, is kind of internal consultation that we're carried out. For us to go over and above that and actually engage with community groups would be seen as if we're acting out of our powers to some extent. So I would be inclined to suggest, but while we would always encourage an applicant to do more, they have done the statutory requirement on this one. Objecting to the planning application on those grounds, I'm not too sure that would be seen as a competent planning objection to the proposal. We've assessed it against the policies that we have, the practical implications of it, and we consider it it's acceptable. But take on board that consultation process. It may be something that personally you would want to write to the Energy Consents Unit and express your concern about the fact that applicants aren't carrying out consultation with local community groups, encouraging them to do so. But it would really be more, it's within the gift of the developer, and possibly some of the Energy Consents Unit could look to bring forward more guidance where they could encourage the developer to involve in greater consultation. But it's not something really I think that the Council just now would have any powers to enforce onto a developer.
Councillor Bert Thompson, please.
Thanks very much, Chair. It's a very current thing, this, and obviously high-profile things in the last few years of safety. And anyway, this council authority, for our constituents' peace of mind, can we ask this, if it goes ahead, for regular safety reports or any concerns raised or anything that happens, can we keep abreast of these things? Thank you.
Yeah, no. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, no, in terms of that, that'd be more a matter of the Health and Safety Executive would be engaged in, as well as our own environmental services, building standards and the like as well. So we would be kept appraised of it. The guidance just now that exists around battery energy storage facilities is quite limited, and it is an emerging technology. We're dealing with a number of planning applications. all of which we know we're also engaging with the Scottish Government to get a bit more guidance on these, give us a bit more land use planning context. The health and safety aspects of it is something that isn't necessarily within the Council's gift just now, but we would be kept appraised of it. But I know that there's actually an event that the Scottish Government have organised in about a month's time where they're asking councils to get engaged in developing planning policy on this, but we don't really have much in the way of context just now. But in terms of this proposal, in terms of its location, it's close to existing renewable facilities, it's seen as if it's acceptable, but we will continue to monitor the health and safety implications, but we would probably be looking more for the health and safety executive to give us advice on that.
Thank you. Thanks, Chair.
Councillor David Watson, please.
Thanks, Chair. I just want to pick up on something that Councillor Lambie mentioned there, and it ties in with discussions I've got ongoing on other sites with planning that I know are coming through the planning system regarding this type of development. And it's like, I think Councillor Lambie mentioned that there's already a site there. And Fraser mentions, this is an emerging technology. What are we doing to maybe control the push out of this from the point of view as an emerging technology, that we're getting creep into areas that we've already got a battery storage facility there, and now we're looking at putting another one. There's going to be one in the future coming before us in East Kilbride, but there's already one, and then another one coming beside it, a request for one beside it. And we seem to be putting the cart before the horse with some of this, and I accept that the directions coming from the Scottish Government, but we must have some control over this, what's happening in our areas. That what happens if this technology is not sustainable? What are we left with? And so much of, we've got these sites all over our authority with battery storage facilities, and we've then moved on to something else so I'm just a bit wary of this. And I noticed I think there's only one property within about 400 metres of this one. But what if there's properties nearer, or even 400 metres isn't that far, and what is the impact on that one property with this sort of thing? So I think we need more guidance and more clarity, and I'm not criticising our own planning people, because they're working with what they've got to work with, but the Scottish Government needs to be giving us absolutely more clarity in these facilities, and what's acceptable, what's not, and also from a safety point of view, because there are stories going about concerns about fire and access to them for the fire brigade. I know there was one in Renfrew, and I think it was a slightly different facility, but at the end of the day, it's still a concern. We're dealing with quite a dangerous site. So I've just got concerns on it, and I think my question is as well, what are we doing to control the rollout of this in one area? Are we going to get honeypots where we've got one, then we've got two, then we've got three, and then we've got four, and then it's a total blight on the landscape? Thanks, Chair, for indulging that. Thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Watson. I think you're right. It's the Scottish Government need to come back with more guidance. And I think our planning officials are working sometimes with their hands tied behind their back going through this. And we have, within the planning department, refused some application because they weren't in the right place. They sat in the wrong areas. And this, Rutherglen was one of them, but this one probably sits better. And again, we are only a consultee, it's not but I'll ask Fraser just to come in just to clarify some of the other points you've got, but I do take your point on that we need more information and guidance from the Scottish Government, and I know that Fraser's taking that up with them on a daily basis. Fraser?
Yeah, thanks, certainly, and I reiterate what you're saying there in terms of one issue is that treating every application or consultation on its own merits, and what we felt as if with this site here, that the proposals were acceptable within the context of it. We have refused other battery energy storage places elsewhere, as I say, we are engaging and we're lobbying with the Scottish Government to get more information, more guidance about this new form of land use that's coming forward. We have to be careful in terms of the role of the Planning Authority and the role of Health and Safety Executive and the issues around danger. I think they're better placed to advise and to guide on that. So we really have to deal with the land use planning considerations just now. But as I say, policy will be emerging. I think we would like to be bringing policy through to the Planning Committee as well. And it's something that we'd look to reflect within the emerging LDP that we're preparing as well. So as a kind of new use around it, issues around what would happen in terms of these uses if the technology doesn't continue. We've got a condition in here about decommissioning as well. So that is there so that the land would have to be remediated if the use doesn't continue on. So we've sought to provide the conditions in here that address the use that we've got just now. But we are aware that we do need guidance and a wee bit more support and a bit more information in terms of dealing with what are quite a lot of applications that we're getting coming forward on that. So it's but we have to be careful about, we have to deal with each individual application on its own merits. So we'll continue to do that.
Councillor Watson, supplementary.
Thanks, Fraser, for that. And it's just something I forgot to ask when I was making my submission there. And I think it has been asked before at committee, and I can't remember the answer. Is there an opportunity for community funds to be raised from these facilities, like that we get from wind farms, for community benefit? Just think.
Sorry, no, in terms of our existing policy, it's not something that we can actually ask for from the battery energy storage facilities, but it's something we will consider, and it's something that I think we could actually look to refine our developer contribution so that we could get some sort of payment around it, but it doesn't sit within the context of South Lanarkshire's local development planning policy just now. But that's something that we could consider and bring forward.
Councillor Clark, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I understand what Councillor Lambie has said, and I agree that there is a need for increased community consultation. But I note what Fraser said in that that may not be a competent planning reason to object. So our hands are a wee bit tied in that respect. Would that also be the same for deferment? Would a deferment even be possible on those grounds? Would that be would Fraser's answer be similar to an objection on that?
Fraser?
Yeah, I would be inclined to suggest, Councillor, a deferment will just make the decision a wee bit later, but we come back to the same place around that as well. We would be deferring it for something that isn't necessarily a relevant planning consideration. So I think here in terms of it's probably the lobbying role, I would say, is maybe a more appropriate approach we've got with the Scottish Government to give us the guidance that would allow us to make the decisions on the planning applications that come to us. Again, this one's a consultation, but we are aware that we are actually sitting on a few planning applications that will come into us as well. So I think we'll be looking for some sort of guidance and support from the Scottish Government when we're bringing applications to the committee to make the decision on.
Thank you. Councillor Mary Donnelly, please.
Thank you, Chair. I take on board all the points that Fraser's been making and some of the points that Councillor Lambie's made. And not coming from Clydesdale area, I bow to my colleagues in Clydesdale for guidance. But I would pick up the point that Fraser had made, and that is, let's write to the Energy Consent Unit, allow, recognising our comments on the getting consent from the people, the communities, getting their involvement. And I would be very much of that mind if we could send that letter. The second point is I would like Fraser to explore community payment in this area, if this is development. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. I think if the people wanted to write as an individual, then that would be absolutely fine and right and proper to do so. Or I would also suggest to bring forward a motion to full council to ask the council to do that. But that would be for political groups to decide how to take that forward. That would be only an option. Fraser, would you like to come in any part of that? No. Okay, thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Councillor Ralph Barker, please.
Sorry.
Right, right. Thanks, Chair. Just a question and observation. The rather irregular outline of this application, I take it, that is because the limit of peat, I take it. So it will be close to peat. In general, it's an open area, not really affecting any residents. I know it's not guidance, but it would have been in some ways helpful to show the other consent and in fact under construction renewable energy projects in the immediately adjacent, which are on a very large scale, and this is a minor development compared to them. Just a general observation that this would have been the next area for open cast coal if coal hadn't gone out of fashion. Thanks, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Lambie, and then we will bring this matter to a close.
Thanks, Chair. Just reflecting on the competency issue. So we're being consulted as a committee of elected members. That's what's happening here. So I don't think competency issues relative to the remit is a roadblock to this. It's interesting you raised community benefit payments. Now, the way these applications have gone in this area is not the only way. That there are other battery storage developers who've already come to community councils before they've even came close to submitting applications, and they've voluntarily raised community benefit fund contributions to the local area. And hats off to them for going that way. But there are other developers who are trying not to engage with the community at all. So I'm still minded that we as a
Councillor Lambie, can I just bring a point of order just for a second?
Yep.
We do have some technical issues, and because people are dropping off in the Confero system, it's probably best that we just wait just for a minute, if that's okay. Okay, it appears we've got most people back in. Councillor Lambie, can you just go back to your part on the community benefit, if you can remember where you were, and then we'll take it from there, if that's okay. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just to quickly reiterate that point, I was just explaining that there are other battery developers, who have already engaged with local community councils and offered community benefit funds up front, and may take some really positive steps, unlike the applicant before us today. Bearing in mind that we are consultees, we don't have the power of decision, and Fraser and his team are working within regulatory guidelines in terms of the recommendation. I've got an alternative proposal, which is in page 17, that in the recommendations section, which perhaps there's 2 points. One is, number one, that we inform the energy consent units we have no objection. And then there's number 2. And then perhaps we could add a number 3, which is our recommendation is that the developer engages in wider public consultation. Is that something we could do? Is that something we could do, just add into the paper without it necessarily being a motion to be voted on, etc.?
No.
I'll ask Fraser just to clarify. Fraser?
Yeah, I would suggest it doesn't change that recommendation, but a third one added in would almost be an advisory note, and it's a comment that would go back as part of our consultation. So we could add some words into it, and that would be the reference that goes back. It flags it up, but I think going back to what Councillor Nelson has said, I would be, I think it's for members to be writing in terms of raising these issues with the energy consent unit.
Okay, I'm agreed. If anyone else is happy with that, okay. Thanks.
Okay. I'm going to bring this matter to a close. I'm going to bring this matter to a close. We have Councillor Donnelly, then Councillor Mars, and I am not taking any further after that. So Councillor Mary Donnelly first of all, and then Councillor Mars, and then we will bring this matter to a close.
support a point 3, but I'm looking for clarification. I could have misinterpreted what Fraser had said, but I thought Fraser said we could actually write to the, and I actually wrote it down, to the Energy Consent Unit, making our mindful observations. And can I actually say, Jerry, I'm getting a bit annoyed at your comments with the chair during my, that's the second time when I've been speaking, and it has made me feel a bit uneasy. I just want that to be noted.
Thank you, Councillor Donnelly. Fraser, would you like to come in on any of that point?
Yeah, I think that's kind of what we had said around the, like the point 3 is we can add that to the response that goes back. Like like encouraging wider public consultation around these proposals as well. So,
Councillor Marrs, please.
Thank you, Chair. I would just note, and I'm hearing that I'm not unique, that I was momentarily removed from this meeting, but straight back in. I did hear the comments and the repetition from Councillor Lambie, so I'm content to continue with the item. What is difficult?
There seems to be another issue with Conferro. I'm just going to seek some legal advice, whether we can continue with the meeting as in the room to make sure we're quorum. If people drop out, then unfortunately they drop out. So I'm away to seek some legal advice, and I will come back to you if you could bear with me. First of all, can I apologise for the inconvenience this morning? Councillor Watson has also indicated that, unfortunately, due to the time constraints this morning, he is no longer going to be in the meeting. And I apologise to Councillor Watson for having to leave early due to the issues with the Conferro this morning. I'm going to ask Stuart just to run through some issues now that we're using Teams. So if we can just listen carefully for those who are remotely. Stuart.
Thank you, Chair. As the Chair has already advised, Councillor Watson has put his apologies in for this second part of the meeting, and I note that Councillor Faulkner has joined. Otherwise, only the members that were present earlier on this morning have rejoined. So if I can just ask members, if you're in the room and you wish to speak, if you just do the old-fashioned raise your hand, and then press your button on your microphone unit once the Chair invites you to speak. And for those remotely, joined remotely, if you can use the raised hand function, please. If there's a requirement for any votes for the remainder of the meeting, they will need to be done by roll call. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. We will just go back into agenda item 3 where we left off, and my memory serves correctly, Councillor Julia Marrs was in the middle of trying to speak. So if we can ask Councillor Marrs to come back in, and then Councillor Convery, and then we will come to a close on agenda item number 3. Councillor Marrs, please.
Thank you, Chair. I had effectively made my point just when I was removed from the meeting that I had heard pretty much every word of Councillor Lambie's comments and the repetition that he offered. So I have a full understanding of his comments and was prepared to continue with hearing that item. Just for the smooth running of the meeting, though, if people could use their microphones. I didn't completely hear Councillor Watson's comments, but I don't know that it was relating to the planning item. I believe it may have related to the smooth running of the meeting.
Thank you, Councillor Marrs. I suppose that's the joy of being in the room and not remotely, is that you can pick up in the room. Councillor Convery?
Yeah. Thanks, Chair. Okay. Yeah, Chair, just to make reference, Councillor Donnelly mentioned my name, that she was watching me talking to the Chair. I just want it for the record, Chair, so everybody's transparent. At the end of the day, people should talk to reports, and there was contributions made by several councillors Fraser had indicated that we're only a consultee. Folk brought in about different things that have got nothing at all to do with the report, and that's what I was alluding to when I was trying to make contact with the chair. We stick to reports and we don't deviate away from reports. That's how you get through business in any council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Convery. So therefore, can I just clarify, Fraser, you're putting in a third comment in this and everyone is in agreement with that. Is there anyone otherwise minded in regards to that? Is there anybody otherwise minded? Happy, then I will move that we go ahead with this and the recommendation.
Agreed.
Okay, thank you. I'll move then on to agenda item number 4, please. Agenda item number 4 then is application P240162. These are pages 29 to 48 in your pack. And that's the erection and operation of a wind farm consisting of up to 10 turbines of varying heights with a maximum height to blade tip of 250 metres and associated infrastructure. And that's in Straven. Fraser?
Sorry, yeah, okay, sorry. Yeah, this report is also a Section 36 consultation and is for a proposal for 10 turbines with a composed generating capacity of 66 megawatts. The site's located less than 5 kilometres from Muirkirk, but it is entirely within South Lanarkshire. Once again, the application will be decided by the Scottish Government and not South Lanarkshire Council. But when assessed against the existing local development plan and the relevant national planning policies, it's considered the proposals are acceptable. So therefore, subject to the conditions set out on pages 36 to 46 being applied and the successful conclusion of a legal agreement in relation to community contribution payments, that the Scottish Government Energy Consent Unit is informed that South Lanarkshire Council does not wish to object to this proposal.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. If there are no questions or comments, then can I agree this report?
Agreed.
Second it, Jerry? Yep. Okay, all agreed? Agreed, thank you. Agenda item number 5, Julia Mars, Councillor Mars has registered an interest. I will ask Councillor Mars just to leave the meeting. Hopefully we can get you back in, Councillor Mars. We will try our best. So if you leave the meeting at the moment, and we will continue with the business. Okay, then agenda item number 5 is application P240320, pages 49 to 60. And this is the erection of an electrical substation, associated groundworks, vehicle access, water detention pond, temporary construction compound and car park area, and provision of temporary soil storage area in Lesmahago and Lanark. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this application relates to a site located between Colburn and Lesmahago, and it seeks permission to install a new substation covering 3.6 hectares immediately north of an existing facility. No objections have been received in relation to the proposals, and when assessed against the relevant local and national policies, it is considered that the details are acceptable, and as such, for the reasons set out in section 12 of the report presented to members, it is recommended that planning consent should be approved subject to conditions.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. If there are no questions or comments, the recommendation then is to grant subject to conditions. I will move this.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Anyone otherwise minded? Thank you. Can we invite Councillor Mars back into the meeting, please? Thank you. Councillor Mars is now back in the meeting. We will move then on to agenda item number 6. It's application P240607, pages 61 to 70. This is the formation of tourist accommodation on undeveloped land, including the erection of 6 log cabins, formation of a vehicle access, creation of a car park and associated infrastructure in part retrospective at Mulslow Road, Carluke. Fraser?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, this application seeks permission for the erection of 6 log cabins. and it's on an undeveloped site within the designated green belt that is accessed from Wolseley Road. The proposal wasn't accompanied by any specific justification as to why the cottages needed to be located within the greenbelt at this particular location, and the proposal is not connected to an established recreational use or specific tourism-related facility. As such, within the context of the relevant local development plan policies, the proposals seek to introduce an inappropriate form of development and would not be consistent with a range of policies within the development plan. So therefore, for the reasons set out in section 11 of the report, which also picks up on the national planning policy context, it is recommended that application P 240607 should be refused.
Thank you very much, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. If there are no questions or comments, the recommendation is to refuse. I will grant that refusal.
I'll second it, Chair.
All agreed. Thank you. We will then move to agenda item number 7, please. And this is application P240686. These are pages 71 to 82. In your pack, it's a erection of 12 dwellings with associated access, parking and landscaping, Kingston Crescent, East Kilbride. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. This application relates to a site that is identified for housing within the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan, and it seeks consent for the erection of 12 dwellings. The site has been subject to previous proposals which recognise this zoning, and as recently as April this year, an application for 14 dwellings was refused by the committee due to the fact that a number of technical details and information had not been submitted. This information has now been submitted, and as a result, there are no adverse comments from statutory consultees. 7 letters of objection have been submitted, and the details of these are available on the planning portal and are summarised in section 7 of the report. However, it is considered that the issues raised have been addressed in the details that have been submitted, and that the proposals are acceptable in terms of its impact on amenity, traffic and environmental considerations. As such, for the reasons set out in paragraph 10.15 of the report, and subject to conditions across pages 77 to 80, it is recommended that planning consent should be granted.
Thank you very much, Fraser. I'll open up for any questions or comments, please. If there are no questions or comments, the recommendation then is to grant subject to conditions. I will grant.
I'll second it, Chair.
All agreed? Thank you. We'll then move to agenda item number 8. It's application P240739, pages 83 to 94. This is the erection of 182 dwelling houses with associated roads, drainage, landscaping and open space, Mansbury, Cambuslang. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this application relates to a site that sits within the Newton Community Growth Area, but is amending some of the details for a proposal that is already approved for a development of 182 dwellings. It is considered there are no substantive changes from the original consent that was previously approved by committee, and while 4 letters of objection have been submitted, it is considered that the proposed layout and details are acceptable, and as such, subject to the reimposition of the conditions on pages 87 to 91, it is recommended that planning permission should be approved.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for questions or comments, please. Councillor Bert Thompson, you just hit your microphone.
Okay, thanks very much, Chair. Just a wee bit of concern. This area, I stay quite close to it myself. Massive. It's expanding all the time, and I think people are happy there. Good settlement. It's infrastructure. I know my old colleague Walter Brogue keeps speaking about it. Are we quite comfortable with infrastructure there, like bus routes, plenty of schools, etc.? Is all that in order? Yes.
Thank you, Fraser.
Yeah, no, as Councillor, I can assure you on that, and that's what is part of the community growth area. So that was a planned expansion at that area. The site as well. It's already there's that tree belt that runs along the edge of it that would effectively contain that area. So we're happy that the infrastructure and the details are in there that will support this development.
Thanks for the information. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Thompson. Any further questions or comments, please? If there are no further questions or comments, then the recommendation is to grant subject to conditions. I will grant.
I'll second it, Chair.
All agreed? Thank you. We'll then move on to agenda item number 9, please, and this is application P240804. These are on pages 95 to 102. This is the erection of a dwelling house, detached garage with associated off-road parking and landscaping in Forth. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, this application relates to agricultural land that's located it's about 2.8 kilometres east of Forth. Seeks consent for the erection of a 4-bedroom detached dwelling that's adjacent to a site that is actually under construction just now for a 1.5-storey dwelling. 3 letters of objection have been submitted against the proposal, which raise issues around access and amenity, but it is considered that the main determining issues for this application are the policies contained in the adopted South Lanarkshire Local Development Plan. In this respect, as set out in section 10 of the report, the proposed dwelling does not comply with the terms of policy 4 of the Local Development Plan, and in turn is contrary to policies GBRA 8 and GBRA 9. The proposals are also contrary to policy 5 of the Local Development Plan, as well as a number of policies within the National Planning Framework. So therefore, for the reasons set out in section 11 of the report that has been presented to members, it is recommended that application P240804 should be refused.
Thank you, Fraser. I'll open up for questions or comments, please. Councillor Allison.
Thanks, Chair. I think this is pretty typical of what's happening in the rural area just now, and we're not really able to get any development. You see at 4.1 there has been 3 different types of applications all granted in this area, and we're now restricting development in the rural area. And I'm not sure, in fact, I'm certain that's not to the benefit of the rural area. I accept the way the planners have recommended this. It is in line with their own planning policies, and I think we need to have a long look at what we're wanting the rural area to provide. This is actually in an area which, if you go back far enough, was industrial. It's where the steel industry started in Scotland, and it has changed significantly. The village has gone, and now we're preventing development in the area. I think it's quite sad. No question.
Thank you, Councillor Allison. Councillor Lambie, please. Councillor Allison, can you just switch your mic back off? Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Fraser, just a quick question. Just looking at this proposed site plan relative to the neighbouring sort of development, looks like a little hamlet. Could it fall under the rounding off policy? Was that a bit?
It was something that was considered under the previous application, but we'd actually got a previous application for 2 houses. At that stage, we said that 1 would have fallen within the rounding off, and that's the reason why that was accepted. The applicant was advised, the pre-application discussion on this, and at this one as well, is that it wouldn't conform with existing policies, previous policies. So I think it's continuing on decisions that have been made in the past.
Thanks, Fraser. Any further questions or comments, please? If there are no further questions or comments, the recommendation then is to refuse. I will go with that recommendation.
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 10, please, is application P240840, pages 103 to 110. This is the erection of temporary accommodation, community hub, associated landscape and access, which is the site of the former Westfield Sawmills, Harriet Street, Rutherglen. Fraser?
Thanks, Chair. This application relates to a site that was previously used for industrial use, but is now zoned for housing within the Local Development Plan, and it's located in a mixed-use area close to Rutherglen Town Centre. The application seeks consent for temporary accommodation within 16 pods, as well as staff facilities and a community hub with cooking, welfare and laundry facilities. The application has been submitted by South Lanarkshire's Housing Service and relates to a project that will be managed by a specialist housing support provider, offering assistance, advice and training in self-contained accommodation as a means of providing the relevant skills to allow a move into fully independent living. 55 letters of objection and 5 letters of support have been submitted following the statutory publicity and consultation process, and while some additional representations were submitted following the issue of committee papers, and the details of these are summarised in section 7 of the report presented to members. The representations and wider land use planning impact of the proposals have been assessed in section 10 of the report, and the conclusion is that this proposal is consistent with the relevant local and national planning policies. It is considered that the proposed use is appropriately located, suggests a positive form of development for this site, and does not raise any planning issues that would suggest that anything other than a recommendation for approval would be offered to members. as such subject to the conditions in section 11, and for the reasons set out in section 12, it is recommended that application P240840 should be approved.
Thank you very much. Fraser, we'll open up for questions or comments. Councillor Donnelly, please.
Thank you, Chair. Having had employed experience in supported accommodation, I would most welcome this application. I think it is to be supported to go forward, encouraging people who need support, wraparound support in the community to build their lives and come out of institutionalised care. So I totally, wholeheartedly support this application. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor John Ross, please.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I presume this is the Social Bite project that we're looking at here, which I fully support. I've worked with them before and raised money for them, and I think the job they do is a sterling job. However, I think in this particular instance, the reason we've probably got so many objections is because I don't think we as a council have taken people with us in the project. If you're going to be doing something like this locally, you've really got to get the buy-in from local people as to what you're about and what you're hoping to achieve. And I really don't think we've done this properly, according and listening to some of my colleagues that live in that area. And I think we should continue with it, but I really think we should try and get greater buy-in from the locale so that people understand fully the good job that this organisation are doing and how welcome it would be at the end of the day in South Lanarkshire. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Ross. I'll note your concerns. Any further questions or comments, please? If there's no further questions or comments, then can I go with the recommendation, which is grant subject to conditions?
I'll second it.
All agreed? Thank you. Agenda item number 11 then. There is no items of urgent business. I would thank you all for your indulgence this morning. Again, my sincere apologies for the inconvenience for those in the room who had to take some time out as well. And thank you for coming into the chamber. It is very much appreciated. I hope you all have an enjoyable day. I'll ask Stuart to stop the recording. Thank you.